Hey, it's Gilligan, and I finally beat Fire Emblem Three Houses. There it is. So check this out. I'm gonna play for you the main theme from the game and a little bit of gameplay while we're at it, right? And call that an intro. Check it out. All right, so intro aside, I'm gonna get into the game, not the way I did it with Xenoblade, but something new, right? Something more efficient, if you will. And really the plan is just to cover what stood out to me in the game, you know? So not cover everything about the game, but just the big takeaways, you know? So the big takeaways, it's gonna have to be honestly, mostly just the characters, you know, because the story was good and all, but it's really the characters that made the story in the end. That's the way I feel. But yeah, so while I've been gone, because I mean, I didn't just recently beat it. I beat it a while ago. I haven't really been able to figure out a good formula to make this video. You know, nothing I was making felt right. It all looked good, but it didn't feel right. You know, so there's been delays, to put it simply. But yeah, so delays aside, getting to the takeaways from the game, right? So, like I said, the big takeaway would be the characters. The characters in this game, every single one of them unique. They all have a story to tell, you know. They all have a really unique background. They got really personal goals that really match, you know, their unique background and their personality and stuff, you know. So it's almost, you know, if this wasn't a game that was anime style, then it would almost feel like real people, you know? That's how well made these characters are, I feel. But yeah, so to add on to that, I mean, on top of the characters acting and I guess feeling unique, they all look unique. The character design in this game, man, it goes in depth, you know? They really get all the details in the clothes and stuff, and everyone's I'm gonna use this word a lot, but their unique way of dressing, you know what I mean? What they wear really matches their personality. And it's just nice to see that it reflects all around, you know? It really, it's attention to detail, you know? That's that good stuff. But yeah, so to add even more to the whole characters being a big takeaway from this game has a really big focus around bonds and building bonds with your allies and, well, slash students, I guess, right? And if you're what do you mean students? I'll get to that in a sec. Yeah, and a lot of the game, if not half of it, I'd say, outside of combat is just really focused around building bonds and getting to know all of your allies and students and, you know, just connecting with them, really. The cool thing about that is you build connections, right? The more you build a connection with a person, I guess, then the more you get to know about them. It's that's how that works, obviously. But it's just really fun interactions. You get to see really fun cutscenes, some of them annoying depending on, you know, what kind of character you're working with. So to give you an even more in-depth explanation, right? For me, one of the more interesting characters, one of the more that got my attention would have been Marianne, right? And the reason she got my attention is because she was overly awkward, you know? Like socially awkward, like comedically awkward, you know?
Claude?
Oh, Marianne. Have the gods taken pity on my lost soul and revealed a sign to me? I've been researching the 10 elites of Fodlan, but I can't tell fact from fiction. My grandfather would have had my head. Thanks for returning it to me, Marianne. You saved my tale.
Please, it was nothing. I should be...
No, I think that's enough researching for today. Why don't you join me for a nice chat?
I just came to deliver the pendant.
Sounds awfully lonely to only talk to those whom you have business with. Do you really dislike talking to people that much?
It's just... I never know what to say. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. Oh, is he? I didn't know. Where were you born?
That is none of your concern. I really must be going.
She's hiding something, that much is clear. But that just makes me all the more desperate to know her secrets.
And on top of that, she's like a loner, right? So doesn't want to be around anyone, thinks she's like a bad luck person. And yeah, when like a character is like made that, like what's the word? And when like a character is built to be that negative, I guess, it always gets my attention because it's like, wow, this person's got it worse than I do. You know, let's go see. I feel compelled to help, you know what I mean? Like no one should have it worse than I do, you know? Like I don't have it bad at all. I don't know what I'm implying here, but I don't know, I just feel like compelled to help or something, you know? But because I did help, I got to see where she's coming from, how she lives, like, you know, privately and stuff. And what am I saying? That sounds creepy. But just like catching her off guard is what I mean, you know? Like her daily activities, I guess. You build bonds from yourself to the students, right? So from Byleth to the students, Byleth students, right? And also you build bonds from student to student. So you get to see how different students interact with each other, you know? And it's really nice to see, man. It all feels really natural. Nothing feels like obvious or scripted or whatever. I mean, it is, but it's like, you can't tell, you know? But yeah, so that was my number one big takeaway from the game, is how unique all the characters were. And I was just impressed, right? Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, this game is half building bonds with characters and stuff and like, you know, interactions and all that good stuff. And the other half would be like combat, right? And the combat, so the thing about Fire Emblem is Fire Emblem Three Houses was my first game, right? And the reason I actually got it was because I remember someone commented they would like to see what every character from Super Smash Bros. Is from. And you know how there's like quite a few Fire Emblem characters, right? So I was like, hey, that sounds like a cool idea, a good idea to get a guideline of what Switch games to play next, you know? To like specifically Nintendo, right, I guess? So I was like, I'll start with those Fire Emblem characters and see what their Fire Emblem games are about, right? So Fire Emblem Three Houses being like the bigger one that sold on the Switch, right? I was like, let's see what that has to offer, right? And that's why I got the game. So I was like, just, you know, threw myself into the Fire Emblem universe. I didn't know what to expect, but I did do, I guess you could call it homework, research, I guess, on like the series itself after I beat the game, right? But not like spoilers or anything in case I want to like get into other games down the line. And I really plan to. I wouldn't say I fell in love with the series, but I liked what it offered me, you know, and I want to see more of it. So where am I going with this, right? Where I'm going with this is the combat. The combat to me was new. Everything was pretty fresh. I mean, other than like, because I play a lot of, what are they called? Real-time strategy games, you know? So tactical turn-based, all that good buzzwords. So like moving units around and attacking and all that, nothing new to me, right? So I jumped into Fire Emblem and I'm like, I got this, right? And I did have it. I mean, I picked it up real quick. I'm used to this kind of stuff. But what I didn't expect was like whenever your characters swing at another character, like an enemy or something, you get into a whole like cutscene and stuff, you know? And that was like new to me. I was pretty blown away by it, you know? Again, in that research, seems like a pretty standard thing they do, but it didn't look as good as it did in the Switch, you know? But obviously the newer the better, right? The other thing that was new to me and I didn't really like was weapon maintenance. I get why it's there, keeping it real, I guess you could say, but it does get a little tedious, you know, especially when you gotta go out and like find materials to repair your weapons so you can take them back into battle. And I mean, it's not a big deal if you're using normal weapons all the time, like steel or iron swords and lances, axes, whatever. But it does get pretty tedious, or, you know, a lot harder to repair weapons when it comes to like rare weapons. And this game has a lot of that. So this game is like, the story is partly based around holy relics, I believe they're called. I'll get to that when I like start talking about the story, right? Getting back to the combat though, the other thing that is pretty cool about this, and again, I wasn't really used to that, but you know, I'll pick it up real quick. The way class systems work. And the cool thing is you can teach any student any class, but they have their preferences. They learn a lot better, and that's the thing, you gotta teach them, right? So they learn and you teach. Well, you know, teach, like, the teaching system is really cool. I'll say that much about it. It's really simple. There's an automatic teaching option or a manual teaching option. Once you learn what you're doing, you just go with manual, because, you know, it's like, it's easy, and you get to get more in depth with your students, and also teach them more exactly what you want them to learn, you know? And the teaching system really just trains them to become a certain class, you know? And I thought it was really cool, because you can make any student any class, but again, they're more proficient if you teach them something they want to learn. That being said, if you teach them, like, for example, a healer, right? If you teach the healer riding skills, like horseback riding, or even flying skills, so like Pegasus and dragons and stuff, then you can make the healer that doesn't have a whole lot of mobility all of a sudden have a lot of mobility. So they can fly over rivers and stuff where like ground units can't cross a river, you know what I mean? Just cover a lot of space, go on top of buildings, you know, you get around a lot better. But then there's also risks, because on top of like the class system, which is really well made, right? Like I said, there's like a lot of different classes, and you can teach anyone to get into that class. But again, if they want to be something, then they'll get into that class a lot sooner. Yeah, so on top of the class system, there's like a rock, paper, scissors system, it feels like. That's the way I felt. Yeah, so you got like heavy armor, archers, horseback riders, you know, and then special weapons too. Not special, but like different weapons. So like lances, swords, axes, bows, all that really fun stuff. Mages, healers, you know, light magic, dark magic. It's pretty in-depth. It's nice. But yeah, so you got the rock, paper, scissors system, right? So for example, bowmen can't really do damage to heavy armor, right? But heavy armor can't really hit like a dexterous swordsman, you know what I'm saying? And that's where the stats come in. Because on top of the rock, paper, scissors system, you can sometimes bypass that with stats. And the thing about stats is they're surprisingly like tactical, I guess. I mean, obviously, right? But let me give you a quick example, right? So if it's the enemy's turn and they come and swing at you, if you have more speed than them, yeah, they might hit you or whatever, but you can hit them back on their turn, you know? If you don't have more speed than them by like twice as much, then you just take the hit. And that's fine and all, right? But it's cool because sometimes they'll hit at you, they might miss or hit, but if you swing back, you have the possibility to kill them, you know? And then one more quick example, right? Dex. It's a really nice thing to have in the Fire Emblem. So the thing is, if you're like a bowman or something, super weak, fragile, glass cannon, and like a lance guy goes to swing at you, right? If you have high dex, you have like a really good chance to just to straight up avoid the hits, you know? And if you, again, going back to the teaching system, if you taught them well and like their skills went up, then you get like cool bowman specific abilities to like counter strike, you know, close quarter counter strike, you know, and then you get some distance or whatever. Really nice system, man. It's like, it felt pretty flawless, and then the more you get used to it, just the more you appreciate the combat. And then I guess the final thing about the combat is they do have like, well, a few things. Yeah, they got like monsters, you know, like big monsters that take up a lot of space, and it's really nice because you can like either send your one-man army unit to them and like go one-on-one, or you send like a little 3-unit squad to them and just take out the monster, you know. Yeah, so the other thing I was gonna say is environment, like environmental tactics, I guess, because depending on the environment where you're fighting, for example, if there's like a forest around and there's foresty areas, you can get your units in there. The movement decreases, right? You can't move as many like blocks around, but your dexterity increases, right? So if they go to like shoot an arrow at you or something, or you know, swing their swords at you, if you're in the forest, they have a harder time hitting you, and that's a really cool mechanic. There's other things that work like that, like special areas, I guess you can like place your units in, and you know, different effects will happen. But that's a pretty good example, you know. And then the last thing about combat, and I forgot, I should have covered this in the beginning. I guess like the newer gen Fire Emblem games give you the option of classic or casual, right? And it's like as it implies, right? Do you want to play the game like the classic way or the new casual way, you know, for like casuals? And that was me. To be honest, well, let me tell you what classic does, and then you'll understand why I went with casual. So what classic does is your units die and they stay dead. So that's really like the biggest difference, right? I don't know if they stay out of the story after that, because every unit like plays a part in the story, right? So I don't know if the story just straight up changes if like one of your units dies in combat, but you for sure can't use them anymore after that, is what the game was telling me anyway. I don't know how much I can confirm that. Yeah, so the other thing about me is for one reason or another, I get pretty attached to NPCs. I don't know. I like to think I'm probably just like too much of a flower child or something, but like if an NPC dies, I feel guilty. Like I feel like someone actually died, you know, like not a real person, but close to it, you know. Like I don't know. I'm gonna just stop explaining myself before I start to sound like psychotic or something. But yeah, I hate seeing NPCs die. So I was like, I'll go with casual and not have to, you know, feel as bad at any point. The other reason I went with casual is because if you train up like, you know, one of your units, and you know, they're like the best unit you got, and you lead them into combat and they fall for a trap or whatever, like they get ambushed and your best unit gets killed, it's like, there goes the progress, you know? And again, the mission I'm on currently is to play as many games as I can, as fast as I can, while enjoying them as much as I can. And really tough challenges like that just kind of give you a setback, you know? So if the challenge is optional, I'll probably take it. But in this case, it seemed like too much of a challenge, especially it being my first Fire Emblem. I didn't want to run into too many setbacks, you know? So I almost forgot to cover something. Tea times. Tea time, that's a really big bonding like mechanic, I guess you could call it, in this game. And it's really nice. So, you know, as the name implies, tea time. And no, I guess if you're not watching it, it doesn't imply golf. It implies actual tea, you know? But yeah, so the way it works is when it's a character's birthday or something, one of your students or just someone in like the Church of Garrett Mach, which also works as a school. Whenever it's their birthday or something, or you can go up to them at any point in the game and talk to them outside of combat, right? You can invite them to a tea party, right? Or a tea time or whatever it was called. But so what happens then is you guys go to like the little cutscene, little like event, I guess we'll call it. Yeah, so at the event, what happens is like you serve them tea, right? And you have the opportunity to like learn their favorite tea leaf, and this thing goes in depth, right? So you give them their favorite tea, and then it comes up to like questions, right? Like you're making conversation. Like I assume this is how real tea times work. Yeah, so this is where it gets tricky, because unless you can really relate to that character, when these conversation things come up, you gotta pick like the small talk, right? And you got like 3 options, multiple choice. Only one of them is right? So pick the right small talk and good things happen, right? Pick the wrong small talk though, and like, well, they're just not feeling it, right? It's like you're not vibing. Anyway, once you get like past 3 or 4 of those stages, if you do it all successfully, then you get extra time, right? And then this is where it gets pretty creepy, not gonna lie. But in the extra time, you get to like observe the character like from different angles. And like If they look good, hey, more power to you. But it is creepy, not gonna lie. So I did my part as a proper reviewer of games and went through with all the creepy stuff just so you guys can know what I'm talking about, right? No other reasons. Yeah, in this case it was Rhea, but I mean you got like a shot to talk to like other characters, right? So like Manuela, right? Who else? I mean there's Hilda too. And the thing I liked about Hilda is she reminded me a lot about Perona from One Piece. I think we can all agree on the resemblance, right? But yeah, so you can do this with almost any character in the game. And then yeah, so the last big benefit to Tea Time is, like I said, it's a big bonding experience. I don't know if I said that. Big bonding experience, but also it maxes out the motivation of whoever you were talking with. And motivation is like another key factor to teaching your students. If your students aren't motivated, you can't teach them that much. If they are, you can. That's simple. I feel like that's mostly it, man. I mean, there was a lot of things to do in this game, but like I said, if you're not in combat, then you're building bonds with students and, you know, other people. So that was a lot of the... Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to cover like a bit of the story and the relics and stuff, right? So wow, covering the story for last. That's different, right? But to cover the story quickly, you're like a wandering mercenary, right? And your dad's your mercenary teacher. So you guys run into like the 3 students one day, the 3 students from the 3 houses. If you needed a reminder, those guys, right? You got Edelgard, you got Claude, and you got Dimitri, right? And the thing about those guys, after you like help them defeat some bandits, is they all want you to join their house, right? Little did they know, you actually end up going back to Garrett Mock with them, right? And your dad turns out to be a big shot at Garrett Mock, like an ex-military general or something like that. He left for reasons that you find out later in the story. Anyway, you get back, you talk to Lady Rhea. Lady Rhea is basically like the biggest deal there, right? So she makes you a teacher right away, right? Like you're 5 minutes into the game, right? So the other 2 teachers come up to you and they're like, hey, what house do you want to teach? Hence the name Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So you pick one of the 3 houses. Yeah, so I was going into this game expecting to like simp over Edelgard or something, right? Because, I mean... But once you like get to know the students, because before you choose, you get to know all the students, right? I ended up like really siding with the Golden Deer, man. They were all just down-to-earth, relatable characters, odd ones out, underdogs, all the good stuff that makes you want to pick them, you know? Meanwhile, like the Red Hawks, I think they were called, and like, what was it, the Blue Lions? Yeah, with Dimitri in them. They just seemed pretty set in life. Like, they knew where they were going, you know? And then meanwhile, the Golden Deer guys, they all needed, like, it looked like they all needed guidance, you know? So you just pick your house and then you become their teacher, right? So you teach them how to become knights or whatever they're trying to become. And really the game just turns into you balancing their school life with training them to become soldiers, I guess. Pretty immediately, you end up discovering about holy relics and stuff and like trying to stop the bad guys from getting their hands on it, right? At some point, you as Byleth, and I went with the girl Byleth because she looks really good. But yeah, you as Byleth get your hands on a holy relic, sort of the creator of all things. Only the person with 5 crests can wield that thing, right? And that's a whole nother thing, crests on their own. Really, it comes down to like only a few people in like big house names get to like be born with a crest, and then you need a crest to wield a weapon. Otherwise, you turn into a monster. So yeah, you get to wield the sword of the creator. The further you go into the game story, the more characters in your houses get opportunities to wield their house relic, you know? So you get to see a lot of cool weapons throughout the game. Only downside is, again, weapon maintenance. So you can't use the relics all the time. Otherwise, you know, you'd be a broken character, right? But yeah, I think that covers everything I wanted to say. Other few quick notes is the game soundtrack, pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not, there wasn't any like songs I'm gonna go out of my way to look up like I do with Xenoblade and Engage the Enemy, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, All of the songs are really fitting for the game. The main battle theme, it didn't get old as much as you hear it like all the time when you're battling. The voice acting though, over the top. Like I said in the beginning, the characters, really well made. Extremely backed up with the voice acting, you know? 10 out of 10.
Thanks for the treat. Come by the infirmary anytime you need anything. I'll be waiting, Professor.
And then the last thing would be like the cinematic, the cutscenes. Yeah, every now and then you get hit with like a not so random, but pretty random cutscene of like a battle or something going down. And I'm sure if you watched the video, you've seen what I'm talking about. But really over the top, really nice, well-made cutscenes. On top of that, the art style and everything, really good looking game overall. But yeah, that should really wrap it up this time for reals. I hope you understood what I was talking about. If you did or didn't though, thanks for watching. That's about it. See ya.